Welcome everyone. My name is Stella, and thank you for tuning in to bibi.yaya, where you will hear real-life personal stories every week, which people have sent to us, detailing their life experiences, feelings, emotions, and reactions along the way. The people who write into us share their stories in hopes of connecting with others who may be able to give advice, comments, and opinions, such as yourself. You may have just the right solution to today's personal life story. Here on bibi.yaya, we will also share our opinions with the hopes that we can help those who share their stories with us. If you have a story to tell, please send us an email in the description box below. And by hitting the thumbs up button, sharing, and subscribing to this channel, you can stay up to date with these very personal stories. This helps us to bring you new life stories and adventures every week, so you don't miss a thing. And you may hear a story here on bibi.yaya which resonates with your life. If so, you can read what others have posted to help you with your own personal situation. These personal stories are real, and people need advice. You could help them. And now, let's hear about today's story. Today's letter comes from Courtney. She meets a young woman who becomes her friend quickly and unexpectedly. Their friendship endures throughout their busy lives, and they are always trying to get together, but life just gets in the way. As much as Courtney adores her good friend, she doesn't handle the news she receives about her friend very well. Courtney deals with it the best she can, but has a difficult time accepting it. Now, here's Courtney's story. Dear Stella, my name is Courtney, and I will always remember her the way she was when we first met, dappled in sunshine. It was 7 years ago on an empty jetty in France. She was with her partner in crime, I was with mine. All four of us were lost. Lost trying to find the boat we were due to spend the next 5 hours on. A sunset festival booze cruise, where what happens at sea stays at sea. There were no boats in the harbor. We checked our phones, checked our watches. We were on time. I don't know how long we were chatting for, but by the time we looked up and saw the shadow of the boat sails casting us in a respite of glorious shade, the four of us had become firm friends. 5 hours later, we were inseparable. The next day, we found ourselves at a music festival. We spent several days there, and they were some of my favorites. We got our faces covered in glitter, long before Instagram made it a cliche, and drank warm Tuborg beer out of damp bottles until the sun came up. Every day, we snuck them into our hotel and got enough from the all-you-can-eat buffet to feed 4 at every meal. We met boys and danced until dawn in an ancient amphitheater, safe in the knowledge that no one on earth was having as much fun as we were. On the last night, we left the festival, put on nice dresses, and had dinner in town, drinking local rosé while posing on impossible white outdoor beds lit by fire lanterns. We swapped numbers and flew home. I had glitter on my hairline for over a week. To me, she was rocket fuel. She was the sense of adventure to my sensible sensibilities. She was the why not to my but why. She got me into mischief that I desperately needed, and I, in turn, would come to provide an occasional counterbalance to her hot-headedness. We were exotic outsiders in each other's already fully formed social circles, a position of power and of intrigue. That is, until she died. And I had no way of explaining to my friends that someone very important to me, who they knew almost nothing about, was not here anymore. I found out she was ill just over a year ago. Cancer. The type she was far too young to have. She handled it the way she did everything, by squaring her shoulders and making a plan of action. This plan did not involve sympathy, pity, or any kind of outpouring of grief on our parts. She was going to fight it, and the only thing she wanted from us was to carry on as normal, to not make her feel like a sick person, and to not look at her like she was dying. I saw her just twice in the year before she died. It is hard admitting that. It is harder admitting why life got in the way. My life got in the way of her death. Work, a new job, new relationships for both of us, the perennial boring struggle with busy, the shallow barriers that can feel unsurmountable, right up until you realize it is too late to do anything about it. We would arrange to meet and one of us would cancel. Eventually, we had brunch, just after she'd been told that her tumor was getting worse. She was very careful what language she used, never telling me it was stage 4, only talking about the practical, fitting chemo around work and her fluctuating energy levels. I look back at the questions I asked her and marvel at my own stupidity. Would she and her boyfriend get to go on vacation next year? Were they thinking of buying something together after this was all over? She dodged those questions artfully. We talked about how she had finally gotten her hair long and now it would go away, probably around the next time of her chemo session. When I first met her, she had an undercut. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. 2 weeks later, we went hat shopping. I tried on backward caps in Topshop to make her laugh and pulled out a maroon velvet headband that she loved. We ate a quick Tuesday night pasta and she frowned upon the clueless waiting staff who brought us the wrong drinks and no cutlery. She used to run bars and restaurants, even theaters, and I loved the high standards she held everyone to. She was one of my favorite people to have dinner with. We said goodbye at the subway, and the next thing I heard, she was dead. The news came on December 23rd. I had texted her in November and heard nothing back. I knew chemo would be taking its toll by then, so I left her alone. It would be gallant to say I didn't want to be a bother to her, but that would be a lie. The truth is more inconvenient. I forgot to chase. I forgot to go to her, to not have her make yet more decisions, to bring her dinner. And now it was too late. At the funeral, a lot of the girls had pixie crops, the shaved heads they had braved for charity and in solidarity with her were now growing out. To go to a funeral of someone your own age, to look around and see only youth and new life, was a strange and disconcerting thing. Guilt twanged at my insides like a taut rubber band. The gap between our last meeting and her death remained blank. I had no idea what had happened, how it had accelerated so fast. She had planned this funeral. Who could speak, who would read poems, pick songs, and that she would be laid to rest to the sound of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. The feeling I had about my outsider status disappeared. Now, I felt like an interloper, intruding on other people's more deserved grief. Afterwards, we talked and told our stories of her. The time we sang karaoke and danced on tables. The day she finally got her favorite silver Russell and Bromley boots and clicked them together like Judy Garland. That May vacation weekend that no one remembers getting home from. And that day in New York City in the tattoo parlor. God, I would miss her. Gradually, I learned the truth of those last few months. I asked tactical questions to unearth the details, trying not to let anyone in on my secret that I didn't know. I wasn't there. I was too busy. But soon, I heard other people asking my questions. Piecing together the facts, the timelines, I realized there were other interlopers. slowly, I didn't feel like such a fraud, like I didn't belong. Eventually, one of her closest friends made sense of it for me. She said, "Imagine having to have that conversation with every person you knew. It would break your heart. Is that really how you'd want to spend those few moments you had left?" And finally, I got it. Guilt and anger dulled into crushing understanding. Death is not about you. It is about them. She did not get a choice as to what happened, but this she could choose. And now, so can I. On the dark, rickety 4-hour train journey home from her funeral, I made a few vows. Choices about how best to serve her memory. I vowed to make time, no matter what. It doesn't have to be long. With good friends, everything is in shorthand anyway. I decided to mix my friendship groups often and without purpose. Everybody should exist in context. After all, the thing they all have in common is you. Everything else is just politics. Finally, something a great writer once told me is the most important thing about any good feature, but which I now find is applicable to almost everything in life. Show, don't tell. Telling people you love them is important, but easy, and usually much more about you than them. Showing them, much harder, and all the more vital for being so. As for her, I will always remember her the way she was when we first met, dappled in sunshine. Thank you, Courtney, for your letter. Courtney had a difficult time, and rightfully so, when she heard of her friend's diagnosis. She lamented over the fact that she was seemingly always too busy to get together and spend quality time with her girlfriend. This is even made worse when her friend dies of cancer at a young age, and then Courtney felt as though she was an outsider at her friend's funeral. How does Courtney come to terms with everything she has learned about herself and her friend? Do you believe you may have the right solution or best advice for Courtney? If so, we would like to hear from you. And you can read other people's comments, solutions, and opinions below relating to these real-life situations. They could very well mirror your own thoughts, or they could be quite different from yours. Remember that by liking and subscribing to Bibi and Yaya, you will hear me read letters every week which people send us about issues they are dealing with in their lives. These are real-life personal stories and people's everyday experiences. And don't forget, if you have a personal story or issue which you would like to share with us, please send an email in the description box below. We would be happy to hear from you and offer any advice on how to deal or cope with your personal experience. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time here on Bibi and Yaya.